handed himself to you last Friday during first period, which was hilarious because Butch in particular was cracking me up. He's still convinced I was here for him. So the only two things I looked at were domain and classroom environment, and what I used was the K-TIP protocol. I went through and I kind of highlighted things through 2 and 3. Probably the biggest thing that I saw is, as always, is, we've worked together before, your rapport with students is incredible. And that's not something that can be taught. It's very much a natural thing. The kids respect you, you respect the kids. And you can tell, even when I came in just now, even those kids that are not wanting to participate are still doing the work, still turning it in, and that's a huge, huge thing. Your classroom procedures and management were great. Everything was posted. The kids knew what the responsibilities were. Everybody was prepared. They were asking questions. I did have a question though. What is the hashtag wall? I saw it back here and I heard you talking about it.
It's a reoccurring weekly assignment. And we try to do it kind of as our exit slip into the class period when we've only got a couple minutes and everybody's just kind of done. We pull that out, and they're supposed to do one every day. We didn't do one today because we were doing our thing. But Monday's always kind of like Man Crush Monday. It's always a guy in history. That's where it came from. Tuesday, Tinker Tuesdays are inventions. Wednesday is some kind of war or conflict. And Throwback Thursday is like a pop culture thing. What's popular at the time, and you got your famous female on Friday. It's always period correct to whatever era in history we're doing. You're going to see like the radio, we're doing 1900s. So we got radios, cars are pop culture invented before like 1900 cars. Late 1800s, early 1900s. How did that change the culture in America? The radio is a new invention at that time. Our war this week is a little different because it's a political war of monopolies versus anti-monopoly trust versus antitrust.
From imperialism into nationalism.
We're into progressivism. So we're
right.
fixing some of the problems of like the muckraking and the political issues. We're trying to fix some of those problems politically. Jacob Reese he was a muckraker, photographer. Elizabeth Stanton was a women's rights activist.
Yes, I know Elizabeth Stanton.
All of those, and we do it every week, and they're always kind of in that period. Sometimes we'll talk about the things specifically. Other times, like one week we had baseball as our throwback, and we're talking about Spanish American War because I think it's important because we get so into the Spanish American War that there's other stuff happening at the same time. It's going, industrialism and progressivism is going on at the same time. That you're fighting the Spanish American War, but we focus on that so much. Baseball comes out, and your first World Series in like 1905.
Well, and I think that's what was so interesting about how the class was running that day, is that, I was looking at your lesson plans, and on the paper, I marked you down a little bit on that just because.
I don't think they matched that day.
They didn't, and they weren't filled out exactly the same as what they do, but I know that you were just kind of moving through the first parts of your K-TIP, and that particular document is kind of hard to learn how to use for our district.
I wouldn't work with it effectively at first, but now that I've got on it, I like it. What I did that day is I plan like 7th period or end of the day, I'll plan my lesson for the next day. And that Friday, I had planned it that Thursday, and I come in that Friday and just something clicked in my head. I'm like, I like this one better. So I went with my new one, and I just didn't match it up on paper.
Well, and that's the only thing I was going to say is that's probably the hardest concept is that, making sure all of that paperwork, even though it seems very overwhelming, is that paperwork does become important. But you could definitely tell that you had planned, and that's the instruction was planned. It was all together. Looked awesome.
I like doing it that way because it sets me up the day before. So this is where my mindset's at, and then I still think about it, coming in, or when I came into that day, I'm like, you know what, this will fit better, and I think this will be a better explanation of what we're going into. So I changed it that day, and I just didn't match it up. But it gave me that opportunity to think about things. I do it the day before, this is where I'm going to be tomorrow, and then when I come in the next day, because everything's new for me. I'm not
Well-
going off of them from previous years.
Right, and I think that's actually really important. That was one of the things I was gonna tell you is that, what I like is you kind of have the overall structure, you know where your unit starts, you know where it ends, you know where you're kind of going. But you're taking the time each day to kind of look back and say, okay, here's where we got to in class, this is what worked, this is what didn't work, let's adjust and do this. That takes some seasoned teachers years and years.
I do that, well, for the way my sections are set up, I've got 5 sections of US that are first, second, third, fourth, and then sixth.
Mhm.
So first period, it's a smaller class and they're quieter and they're slower, but that's my like figure it out period. And first and second, by third and fourth, I've already made changes and it flows smoother, so it's a little rough on the first couple classes.
Well,
But by the end of the day, we got the unit figured out, which is good because my morning classes are small. Like I think there was 12 in first period.
There's 12 in
and there's
first period.
35 in sixth period.
Right. And that was what was interesting to see is that the vocabulary that you had started going over on last week, when I came in today to see how you ended up executing that,
Mhm.
because I know that's the one thing the kids were having trouble with. They were trying to figure out where you
That
were
vocab
going
is
with it,
thing,
yeah. And especially because you have Butch in here who is a moderate to severe disability student with autism, he's his own little creation
Yeah.
sometimes, and he wants to work independently. You did a really nice job, just very smoothly handing him a piece of paper, especially because he was watching me the whole time,
Mhm.
trying not to come over there. I talked with Miss Martin a little bit afterwards as well,
Mhm.
and the one thing I wanted to show you that I marked you exemplary on domain 3 as well. And that was actually this, your flexibility. I didn't finish my notes, I apologize. But I marked you as exemplary with your flexibility and responsiveness because one of the really interesting things that occurred during that class, it wasn't just Butch kind of freaking out because I was in the room.
Mhm.
Some of your other students were trying to catch on and you realized that things weren't quite snapping with them.
Mhm.
And so you stopped, backed up, and then modeled what you needed. And then you kind of moved on. The Jacob Reese picture, I think, was fantastic.
Yeah, because that's what we did for our flashback. That's why I changed, because I thought that would flow better.
It looked really good. And the hashtag wall, I think, was the most interesting to me to see how, that was the only thing I couldn't kind of figure out is how that played into your unit, but now I get it.
Yeah, the first couple of weeks were difficult, and the first time we did it, it was random people in history. I didn't like that setup, so we changed it to, it's always period correct now. So if we're in progressive era, we're gonna talk about progressive people and inventions in that time. And it just keeps their mindset in that area, what else is going, I like the inventions and the throwbacks kind of specifically are usually kind of off topic. What else is happening? What else was invented? It doesn't deal with progressivism really, but it's something else that was going on.
Well, and I think what's really neat is to see where you were last year with me and really working through kind of social studies and US history and being able to try some of those ideas.
Yeah.
It's really neat to see how it's translated for a regular classroom now. Because I can see by looking at this where we were still just trying to figure out how we're gonna do this. You've actually taken a lot of those concepts that we did and instead of
I'm glad.
modifying it down, you've modified it up, and that takes a very long time to do, and so that's a really neat thing to see.
Last year was good for me to be out there and have some kind of experience building lessons and doing the modifications that I'm not particularly used to, because it wasn't a strong point in that education was doing those modifications.
Well, and I think, I primarily look at domain in 2 and 3, the classroom environment and your actual instruction. What I looked at with that is when I came in, the flashback was going, kids were on task, and through the policies and procedures. I feel bad for you that your television is to the side of the kids
Yeah.
because with your board here, you have to do your instruction here.
Yeah. And we use both, because sometimes when we do PowerPoints, it's over there. Some classes, 5th period, I do my notes usually on the board. I don't give them PowerPoints as much. And they like that better. So I'm up there, so I'm back and forth. I was going to talk to Henderson about moving.
What I would like to see is I'd really like to see if that, even if you could just get it where that cabinet, I know that cabinet's built in though, I think.
With that, where that like writing
Yeah,
clock is.
if there was some way to get it there, but my concern with that is then you lose all that board space.
You know, it doesn't, it comes down some of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't, you lose like the top quarter maybe of that much.
Well, that would be the things, if you can still make it functional, I think that would help you
Mhm.
be able to keep the flow
Yeah.
going, and then with a couple of your kids, especially in that first period class, you know, you've got one or two that tend to drift a
Mhm.
little bit.
They're all, the first period is so quiet, they don't say a word.
Well,
It's, you gotta dig hard to get them to,
some of that's just the time period.
yeah, and it's small, so there's not a lot of them to get each other
Right.
going. So there's only 12 of them, they're kind of spread out.
What you might consider for your first period class with that, mix it up one day and put them in a circle
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
force it a little bit. Or even just a U shape, just like take out these two desks and, you know, put tape, okay, you guys can't sit here today, you gotta do this.
Yeah.
Because there's one young man back here that he is special ed, and when he's super quiet, yep, he may not always be getting the material. He's one to watch.
Yeah, he popped up once we started turning some stuff in.
Yes, and he's one that I'm concerned about. So like if you know he's really, really struggling and you're sending Butch to me that day, send them both and we can do the modifications in my classroom for that time
What
period.
about, do you know the girl who was in front of him? Is she there that day?
Yes, and she is either ECE or 504.
She's kind of low on her performances so far.
Yes, some of that is typical, some of it is she may not be understanding. So those three are the ones that I would kind of, if they're quiet, I would double check them to make sure they're getting the material. And what you might want to do, because that class is so small, the young lady, you might pair with Butch so that they can work as a team, and that will probably draw her up and it'll make Butch feel, you know, he'll think
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
There's some that work with him really good in that class.
It's a very, you had the most interesting mix of students. I knew all of them, and you literally have the highest of the high and the lowest of the low in that group. And that, as you know from your experience with me before, bridging that is really difficult. But with your instruction, it was neat because you had a good mix of traditional notes, video, or the picture, discussion, and then an activity. The only thing I probably would have changed about that whole thing is when you had the Jacob Reese picture up, I might have had a copy for each of them. But that's a hard call. Because you don't know the kids as well as I do, some of them. But overall, I thought it was good, especially since it was the transition from those diagnostics into a new unit. Cause you could tell they were on overkill from the diagnostics.
Mhm.
And then to start into a new unit. But I love that you're reflecting. That to me means the most because you're actually thinking about what you're doing. You're working ahead. The other thing is I talked to your department chair in this process because you know Ms. Manvactor and I talk all the time. She said one of the neatest things that she has seen that we actually haven't seen in your all's department for a long time. You are going and seeking information from your department.
Yeah, I talked to every one of them. I have to, because they've been the most help. I like the department. They're great people. I don't talk to Barnett as much. I go in and talk to him, but he's world history and he's freshman.
And that's
so
such
we're apart.
two
But he's
ends
still
of the
got
world.
some great things that the way he sets up his classroom and review and different techniques that I get anything I can from whoever.
And that's gonna be what makes you the most successful, by reflecting on your instruction, by going and gathering information from your instruction. That helps you not just with the instructional piece, but it helps you with that classroom setup. And now that we're kind of 4.5 weeks in, it gives you a better concept of what we're looking at. So
Mhm.
the hardest part for you is you're gonna have to keep stepping up, because you're in a good place right now, but we don't wanna stop that
No,
trajectory. And we had talked about that previously, so I feel pretty good about this. What are your thoughts on this?
I think I realize there's a lot I can go. A lot of mine, I think, is content cohesiveness, because I haven't taught this stuff before. That's why I do some of the flashback, like that flashback particularly was something they should have done last year.
Yes.
But I don't know, because I wasn't here and I don't know where they were, or I
Right.
had a lot of time to talk to the other teachers on, what did you get to? I tried to, and they're in different places. So that was something they should have had. And some of them had said, I've seen that very picture before, and we were able to take those classes and go. Other, like first period and parts of third, hadn't seen that before, and they didn't know what those problems were. Because progressives take the problems that they learned about last year through Gilded Age and industrialism, and they fix them. So if you don't know what the problems were, it doesn't make sense me talking about fixing the problems if you don't know that they were the problem. So
Right.
some of that stuff is a learning process for me on figuring out where they were last year,
Right.
and kind of trying to pick up those pieces and go. Because I wasn't here and I wasn't, mingling with the social studies last year to figure out how some of these kids were and how they work. But as that moves on, I think that'll flow into be able to embed those things easier on
Right.
understanding your students and what they got last year, and just communicating more with the department.
Well, and I think that'll be the biggest thing is that, communicating with the kids, communicating with your department. The other big piece of that, just like we did last year, data.
Mm-hmm.
So like this diagnostic, when it comes back, really look at that, because that should pinpoint some of the areas where certain groups of your students have their knowledge base and
Right.
don't. Are you doing any, I know you're doing the exit slips, you're doing the formal assessments with your units. Are you doing any pre-assessment?
We didn't do a diagnostic pre-assessment
Mhm.
for each unit. We just kind of, when I first started, the first unit I did came from talking to the other teachers. Where did you get to last year, and where do you think I need to start? Do I need to go too much further back? So I just kind of went off of theirs.
Okay.
And then off of the second unit we didn't do a full test. That was what the flashback was kind of I don't know, it doesn't count as a free full diagnostic, but that was
It gives you a
this was a
background.
concept you should have had last year. Where we at on this concept? And that kind of changed how much I talk, because you got the two different units, the
Right.
problems and fixing problems.
Right.
So I'm trying to do it, they were about 50-50. Half of the kids understood what the problems, and they were able to tell me about them. So the other half, they didn't, from looking at that picture, they didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So when I'm teaching it this time,
Mhm.
I'm kind of teaching them at the same time. Here's where the problems, and let's talk more about fixing them. But I'm trying to cover the problems quickly. That's like what we're doing today, is identifying the problems that they should have done last year. So those that did have it, they can just do it better than others. Those who didn't have it, this is their chance to try to catch up real quick, because we've got to keep moving. I mean, we've always got to be moving forward. But I don't want to. Well, I'm half and half. That's what I got. I just got that just through the flashback on. Did you
Well, and that's
recognize it or
enough of a
not?
pre-assessment. For your guys in particular, that's what you need to see is
Mhm.
where are we? Okay, here's where, you already know where you need to be. That's really what assessment's about.
Yeah.
You know where you need to be, and let's see where we are. Well, once you kind of did that flashback and saw, whoo, nobody knows anything,
Mhm.
then that allows you to do that quick problem, more time on the solution. Quick problem, more time on the solution. And
Yeah.
that's gonna be that combination of data and reflection.
Yeah.
Those are the two big things.
That's what I was using. That's why I changed that flashback, because the flashback didn't match. And I think I changed my daily learning target to more match what my flashback was going to, on identifying those problems and figuring out where we're going to go from there. That was kind of my do you think it's better to do quick ones like that through a flashback to try to get that formatively, or have a summative data that you can?
I like to do a mix of both. What I like to do is, like with you, is I'll do quick flashback. That kind of lets me know where they are. If I know that I have this huge thing I have to get to at the end, then I might, 2 or 3 days in, do a 5-question quiz that kind of covers the main concepts that we've gone over so far as their flashback, so that it's a little more formalized.
Yeah.
It can be 1, 2, 3, 4 questions, but something for their flashback that may be a little longer,
Mhm.
just so it gives you a little better idea. Oh, they did get all this. I can go ahead and jump up here now.
Okay.
Just something to think about.
Yeah.
You're gonna know your kids and you're gonna know, how they're doing, but as you go, especially as we get closer to that EOC time, you may wanna have something a little longer and formal, just because it's gonna help you kinda know what else do we need to hit before that time period.
Yeah. Our other, most of, like today's flashback was an EOC review. We do those, and I got that from McClellan. He's got that, he did a PowerPoint on it.
Mhm.
And they're set up to where, like if cause the EOC is sophomore class all the way through the junior US history.
Right.
It does both. And all the EOC questions on the PowerPoint are only from sophomore class, PES.
Right.
So we normally do those as a review, just those are our kind of quick flashbacks. This is gonna be on your test at the end of the year. Do you still remember this from last year? Just to keep that stuff fresh and
Right.
keep it kind of working in their mind.
And you can actually use that as a little more formalized,
Cause then
kind
it's
of
set up
gathering.
in tests, like with multiple choice. We do 3 to 4 day, just kind of go.
Then that's more than sufficient, because that will give you enough of an idea as you're planning to kind of know where they are and kind of know, we're not getting everything covered, how do I need to adjust?
The only thing we do, which I can modify, but they're just kind of random questions, so they're not always built up right before what we're going into next.
You
So
might wanna
sometimes
add-
they're from like early colonial period,
Mhm.
Constitution stuff, all the way up to Industrial Revolution. It's just random questions here and there about the EOC.
That might be a better choice, especially since you are new, since you're kind of getting to know the kids. Maybe pick 2 or 3 that you know are related to your
Yeah.
unit and use those
Yeah.
as a precaution. All right, well, I'm good. Are you good?
Yep.
Okay.
So,
All
thanks
right.
for the feedback.
Well, you're welcome, and if you have any questions, just let me know. But again, it was really neat to see you in charge of your own classroom this year.
I'm excited about it.
I'm excited for you. I know that you got some experience last year working, but now it's neat to see what we started with and expanding out
Right.
into this, so. And Butch loves it. He looks at me,
He's great.
bye, I'm on my way to Sullivan's. But, yeah,
He's great.
so, all right, thank you very much.
Yep.
I appreciate it.